War with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars. And it's been said if we lose that war, and in so doing lose this way of freedom of ours, history will record with the greatest astonishment that those who had the most to lose did the least to prevent its happening. Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the founding fathers. Not too long ago, two friends of mine were talking to a Cuban refugee, a businessman who had escaped from Castro. And in the midst of his story, one of my friends turned to the other and said, "We don't know how lucky we are." And the Cuban stopped and said, "How lucky you are. I had some place to escape to." And in that sentence, he told us the entire story. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves. Private property rights so diluted that public interest is almost anything a few government planners decide it should be. Or our traditional system of individual freedom is incapable of solving the complex problems of the 20th century. Senator Fulbright has said at Stanford University that the Constitution is outmoded. He referred to the president as our moral teacher and our leader. And he says he is hobbled in his task by the restrictions of power imposed on him by this antiquated document. He must be freed so that he can do for us what he knows is best. And Senator Clark of Pennsylvania, another articulate spokesman, defines liberalism as meeting the material needs of the masses through the full power of centralized government. Well, I, for one, resent it when a representative of the people refers to you and me, the free men and women of this country, as the masses. This is a term we haven't applied to ourselves in America. But beyond that, the full power of centralized government, this was the very thing the founding fathers sought to minimize. They knew that governments don't control things. A government can't control the economy without controlling people. And they know when a government sets out to do that, it must use force and coercion to achieve its purpose.
Good evening, my fellow citizens. This government, as promised, has maintained the closest surveillance of the Soviet military buildup on the island of Cuba. Within the past week, unmistakable evidence has established the fact that a series of offensive missile sites is now in preparation on that imprisoned island. The purpose of these bases can be none other than to provide a nuclear strike capability against the Western Hemisphere. Only last Thursday, as evidence of this rapid offensive buildup was already in my hand, Soviet Foreign Minister Gromyko told me in my office that he was instructed to make it clear once again, as he said his government had already done, that Soviet assistance to Cuba, and I quote, pursued solely the purpose of contributing to the defense capabilities of Cuba, unquote. That, and I quote him, training by Soviet specialists of Cuban nationals in handling defensive armaments was by no means offensive. And that if it were otherwise, Mr. Gromyko went on, the Soviet government would never become involved in rendering such assistance, unquote. That statement also was false. Acting, therefore, in the defense of our own security and of the entire Western Hemisphere, and under the authority entrusted to me by the Constitution, as endorsed by the resolution of the Congress, I have directed that the following initial steps be taken immediately. To halt this offensive buildup, a strict quarantine on all offensive military equipment under shipment to Cuba is being initiated. All ships of any kind bound for Cuba, from whatever nation or port, will, if found to contain cargoes of offensive weapons, be turned back. It shall be the policy of this nation to regard any nuclear missile launched from Cuba against any nation in the Western Hemisphere as an attack by the Soviet Union on the United States, requiring a full retaliatory response upon the Soviet Union. I call upon Chairman Khrushchev to halt and eliminate this clandestine, reckless, and provocative threat to world peace and to stable relations between our two nations. I call upon him further to abandon this course of world domination and to join in an historic effort to end the perilous arms race and to transform the history of man. Our goal is not the victory of might, but the vindication of right. Not peace at the expense of freedom, but both peace and freedom here in this hemisphere, and we hope around the world. God willing, that goal will be achieved.
I need some machine to tell me that.
President's on his way to Andrews to join Airborne Command, so we have to give launch option.
Has he been in touch with the Premier?
The Russians are still denying everything, sir.
We have a Soviet submarine launch detection.
Let's go into a launch mode. Close up the mountain.
This is Crystal Palace. We're closing up the mountain. You'll have to hurry. After the gates are closed, nobody gets in or out.
En 1973, científicos y militares soviéticos ensayaron el lanzamiento del misil nuclear que se convertiría en la más mortífera arma en el mundo, un misil balístico intercontinental bautizado como R-36. La tecnología utilizada en esta arma era vanguardista a mediados de la década de 1970 y aún hoy en día se mantiene como una de las más precisas. De hecho, desde el punto de lanzamiento puede llegar a distancias de hasta 11.000 kilómetros. El usuario de Twitter, compartió unas imágenes en las que se pueden ver algunos de los misiles que usan el sistema desarrollado desde 1972, perfeccionado desde entonces con sus modificaciones más recientes realizadas en 2021. Aunque suelen confundirse un arma con la otra, el misil R-36 no es el mismo que Satán. Su variación fue nombrada R-36M. Según la agencia de noticias rusa Sputnik, este segundo misil tomó las mejores características de su antecesor. Satán tiene una capacidad destructiva de entre 15 y 25 megatones cuando carga las ojivas pesadas. En el caso de las ligeras, estas tienen una potencia de 8 megatones. Un megatón corresponde a la posibilidad explosiva de 1.000.000 de toneladas de dinamita. De acuerdo a las especificaciones oficiales, un solo misil de este tipo podría impactar en 10 objetivos diferentes y podría causar varias otras detonaciones más pequeñas. Con su potencia, es capaz de destruir todo el territorio de Francia o la costa este de Estados Unidos. Además, viene equipado con bombas de señuelo y diversas cabezas nucleares dentro de un único misil. En agosto de 2018, en medio de las hostilidades entre Rusia y Ucrania debido a la disputa territorial por Crimea, Vladimir Putin compartió videos en los que se podrían observar pruebas y lanzamientos de un arma posterior a esta, Satán II. Esta arma, en vez de tener 10 ojivas nucleares, tendría 12. A finales de 2021, Putin había advertido que esta estaría lista para su uso a finales de 2022, según el medio inglés The Sun.
El presidente de Rusia, Vladimir Putin, ordenó este domingo a sus jefes de defensa poner en alerta máxima las fuerzas de disuasión nucleares del país y acusó a Occidente de tomar medidas no amistosas contra Rusia. Las tensiones internacionales ya están disparadas por la invasión rusa de Ucrania y la orden de Putin solo causa más alarma. Ordeno al ministro de Defensa y al jefe del Estado Mayor de las Fuerzas Armadas rusas que pongan las fuerzas de disuasión del ejército ruso en modo especial de servicio de combate. Con las tropas rusas acercándose a Kiev, la oficina del presidente de Ucrania informó que los enviados ucranianos se reunirán con los diplomáticos rusos. El portavoz del Kremlin, Dmitry Peskov, dijo que la reunión tendrá lugar en la región bielorrusa de Gomel, sin dar más detalles. La presidencia ucraniana no especificó la fecha de las conversaciones, pero Rusia dijo que tendrían lugar este domingo.
Ladies and gentlemen, President Kennedy will be speaking shortly.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am here to give you an update on the situation regarding the Soviet Union and NATO. The North American Aerospace Defense Command has detected the launch of 80 intercontinental ballistic missiles. These missiles are believed to be carrying nuclear warheads. The targets of these missiles are unknown at this time, but it is believed that the majority of them will come across and hit the United States. The United States and other NATO members are currently preparing for counter-strikes against the Soviet Union. For all those all across the United States, I urge you to seek a fallout shelter right away. Take at least 14 days of supplies with you to your shelter, such as food, water, clothing, medical supplies, a flashlight, a first aid kit, and a battery-powered, or hand-cranked radio, preferably one with an alert indicator. Do not leave your shelter, as you are exposing yourself to radioactive fallout. Ladies and gentlemen, I know that this is a very scary situation, but we must work together to save lives, and we can rebuild, and make a stronger country. We will not fall to our enemies. America will not be broken.
Мы, жители Мурманской области, и мы как никто понимаем, что любую битву с нацизмом, природными катаклизмами или пандемией можно выиграть только всем вместе, плечом к плечу.
Сегодня российская армия сражается за безопасность России и целого мира, потому что у нацизма нет границ.
И мы никогда не предадим российского солдата, как бы этого не добивались те, кто ставит свои интересы выше правды.
Север не предаст!
За Россию! За президента! За победу! За Россию! За президента! За победу! За Россию! За президента! За победу!
Для них война, мой орден на столе, зашитый медвежонок в 3 стежка и шрамы от осколков на спине, подаренного дочкой медвежонка. В столе я вместе с орденом храню, но снова взял по просьбе ребятенка, чтоб Мишка прикрывал меня в бою. Подаренного дочкой медвежонка, как талисман ношу я в рюкзаке. Я выполняю просьбу ребятенка, чтобы не убили папу на войне.
Мы, жители Мурманска. Мы, жители Мурманска.
Stop escalating the war. Stop sending arms. Why didn't you push Kyiv to sign the Minsk Accord? Why no to NATO? Shame on you. You're going to push us to World War III. Shame on you. No to war. No to escalation. Stop sending weapons. Stop training the military. Stop using Russia or stop using Ukraine as a proxy against Russia. No to NATO. Non à l'OTAN, non à l'OTAN, non à la guerre, non à l'escalation. Tu devrais avoir honte. Stop using Ukraine as a proxy against Russia. Stop using Ukraine as a proxy against Russia. No to war, no to NATO.